After completing my 10th class exams in 1979, my father suggested that I go and help my father's uncle and learn astrology. Mathematics being my favorite subject, I learned the calculations. My grandfather taught me how to calculate the inclinations of each planet and how to calculate the lagna and the meridian center MC, and he gave me some birth charts to draw. Thus, I learned how to draw the birth charts first and showed interest in predictions. So, my grandfather told me some predictions, some of the tips that he usually uses for predictions, and after learning those tips, I documented some of them. I verified with my father. While my father and my grandfather have laid the foundation for me to get interested in astrology, for almost a decade or 2 decades, I didn't show any interest. Hi, welcome to Sastry Karra's astrological series. In this series, what I'm going to do is to consider the females who were not married even at the age of 30 and identify what is the astrological reason behind that for them not to get married. So the title of this presentation is Vivah Vilamb Special Cases Part 1. The reason I took it as special cases because there are 5 female charts, the birth details, that one of the forum member in Vedic Astrology Facebook has posted, stating that she couldn't get a agreeable reasoning why these 5 female natives were unmarried as of now. I considered those 5 female charts, had reviewed it, and in this presentation what I'm going to do is to present my astrological reasoning why the 5 females remain unmarried as of now. This is completely for those who are learning astrology or those who already knew astrology but want to see what are the techniques or how do I do the predictions. So this tutorial is only for those people. Please note that this is for educational purposes only. So once this presentation is done, if you have any questions about my predictions or the techniques that I had used, at the end of presentation what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide you with my email address or the Facebook account. I prefer that you send an email so that at my convenience I can respond to you. Hope you will like this presentation, and let me see how the things goes. Let me start explaining the chart for the first example. The date of birth for this female native is 18th June 1979. So let's go and see where is the Rashi Lagna. The first and the foremost what you'd see is where is the Lagna. The Lagna is in Gemini. Okay, good. And then the Lord of the Lagna is Mercury. So where is Mercury? Mercury is the first house lord, is residing in the first house. That's a beautiful sign, good sign for the native. And Mercury is also the lord of the 4th house. So the first and the 4th house lord is staying in the first house. That means the first house is strong enough. Mercury is good for communications, so the native is very good when it comes to communications. And then comes who else is there? The first house. The first house you see Sun. Sun is the lord of the 3rd house, residing in the first house. Sun, so just it is the 3rd house, we can just ignore it. Now let's start for the marriage, possibility for the marriage. When you try to look at the possibility for the marriage, the first and the foremost thing you have to do is not look just the 7th house. 7th house is the end result, is marriage. But to achieve that end result, what you need is to look at the other houses that are responsible for achieving the end result. Here what you see is the second house, the fourth house, the fifth house, and then the 11th and 12th houses. Remember in my earlier presentation, Vivah Vilamb presentations, I clearly explained that you should never look just at the 7th house and tell the possibility for marriage. There are a lot of other houses that you have to look at it. So now here that we will start first with the second house. The second house lord is Moon. Moon is Matrakaraka. That's a very good sign. And Jupiter, the Karaka for marriage for women, is in second house. That's another good sign. And Jupiter is the lord of the 7th and 10th houses. And see, where is Moon residing? Moon is in the 10th house. That means there is a Parivartana Yoga between the second house lord and the 7th house lord. That's very important. So this clearly tells you that when the right time comes, Moon and Jupiter will surely help the Netu to get married. That's when the right time comes. That's very important here. So now that you have seen the second house, which is very good, and you have no issues there. Let's see, is there any bad malefic planet aspecting the second house? I don't think so. Mars, who is in the 12th house, the first malefic, is looking at the fourth aspect is on the 3rd house, so forget about it. And then the 7th house means you need to have something in the 8th house. 8th house is empty. So the second house, Jupiter, is not getting any malefic aspects. That means the 7th house lord residing in the second house is very good for this native to get married. So until now, what I would say is that the native has the possibility to get married. Now let's go to the 4th house. The 4th house lord is Mercury. As I said, Mercury is in the first house. So the first and 4th house lord reside. So Mercury is there. And Moon residing in the 10th house is having a direct aspect on the 4th house. That's another good sign for this native to get married, is because the Matrakaraka is looking at the Sukhasthanam. So the native, this tells you that as of now, the chances are very good for the native to get married. The next is the 5th house. 5th house lord is Venus. Venus is the lord of the 5th and 12th houses. You know, the 12th house is the pleasures of bed and 5th house is Putrasthanamu, and Venus is the lord of the 5th and 12th houses residing in the 12th house. So there's a good, as of now, it's very good for the native. Now go to the 7th house. The 7th house is empty. And 8th house, 9th, 10th, 11th. Let's go to the 11th house. The 11th house lord is Mars. And Mars is, the 11th house is also empty. So till now, everything is going perfectly fine for the native to say that the possibility is very high for this native to get married. So now let's go to the 12th house. 12th house is very important, which is the pleasures of bed. So in the 12th house, you have the malefic 11th house lord Mars residing in the 12th house, co-joined with the 5th and 12th house lord Venus. So this Mars might create some sort of an issue when it comes to the pleasures of bed, and when it comes to the Putrasthanamu or children, and will be somehow responsible for the lack of desires, because the 11th house is Kamasthanamu, and that's where because of Mars, there's a possibility, I'm telling you, there's a slight possibility for a lack of desires for this native. So when we have looked all the important houses, we haven't found anything strong reason to say that this native, it's very difficult for this native to get married. Good. Now let's go and look at what are the other reasons. Just because we saw these and we couldn't find it, then we go and, since we knew that the native is unmarried until the age of 30, there should be some other reason that is some other planet, and especially a malefic planet, that might be responsible for all of these things. So first and foremost, what you see is you look at the most important two malefic planets, Rahu and Saturn. In this chart, they both are residing in the third house. Third house is siblings, so we have no issue with it. And since Saturn is residing in the third house, and for sure it destroys the house next to its residence, which is the fourth house. Fourth house is Sukhasthanam. So Saturn has destroyed the ability for the native to have a home life environment. Saturn's third aspect is on the fifth house, Putrasthanam. So Saturn has created some sort of a hurdles when it comes for the native to have children. Okay, good. Now Saturn's direct aspect from third house, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, is on the ninth house. Ninth house is Dharmasthanamo. So something adharma has to happen for this native. At this point, we don't know what is that adharma. So let's keep that one aside. And then the Saturn's 10th aspect. Remember, the Saturn's 10th aspect is on 12th house, where the 5th and 12th house lord are residing. That's it. When you see Saturn's Saturn is spoiling the 4th house, Saturn is creating hurdles in the 5th house, and Saturn is creating the hurdles in the 12th house, where the 12th and 5th and 11th house lords are residing. And above all, remember I told you Mars 4th aspect is on the 3rd house. That means Mars is looking at Saturn and Saturn is looking at Mars. This is one of the worst combination to say that the planets residing in the 12th house and Saturn is having such a aspect on the important 12th house and the important planet Venus, which is the 12th and 5th house lord, and Mars, which is the 11th house lord. So when you look at all these things, you can clearly say that yes, there is a problem for this native to have some sort of an issue when it comes to marriage. And one more thing I would like to add before I end it is, if you look at the position of Saturn from Chandra, moon, natal moon, you see that from natal moon, natal Saturn is in the 6th house, which is a Dushtana house. So when Saturn is residing in the Dushtana house, it becomes much stronger. The malefic power of the Saturn gets much stronger, and it's co-joined with Rahu. That means Rahu and Saturn together became much stronger, and whatever Saturn wants to do, Rahu is a catalyst to the Saturn. So when Saturn destroys the 4th house, creates a hurdle in the 5th and 12th houses, Rahu is cooperating. That's the primary reason, in my opinion, why, even though when you look at the 2nd, 4th houses, 5th, 7th, 11th and 12th houses, you see that the possibility is very high to get married, but still the native is unmarried. I think this is one of the reasons. Let me go and look at the other techniques like the Bhiruga Chakra Paddhati, Sarla Paddhati and the Vimsotari and other Dasa systems to see, do they support the native in one way or the other to get married. Now that I explained for the example 1, the first female chart, in detail about the Rashi chart, D1 chart, let me go to the Bhiruga Chakra Paddhati to see if there is any possibility for this native to get married. You know, in Bhiruga Chakra Paddhati, you get it between a year, for every year. So even though the duration is for the whole year, let's see, is there any possibility first. And when you look at the chart, for the native who was born on 18th June 1979, the 12th house, Mercury will activate the 12th house once the native turns 23, after the native's 23rd birthday. Remember, for females, the one what I will do usually when it comes to the checking for the possibility of getting married, what I usually do is I start from the day after 23rd birthday for that female native and go all the way till the day before 36th birthday. That's it. So that will come to approximately 13 years. If the native, female native, doesn't get married in these 13 years, the possibility is very high for her to remain unmarried. I go only up to the age of 36, and so I am trying to predict the astrological reasons why the native could not get married before the age of 36. Now when you look at this chart, this Mercury activates the 12th house between June 2002 and June 2003. This is a very, very important thing. Here Mercury is the first and the fourth house lord, activating the 12th house from Rashi Lagna and from its natal position. Because Mercury is residing in the first house, its own house, then Mercury activating the 12th house is very high. So the power of Mercury to activate the 12th house is very high. So 12th house is pleasures of bed. So we presume that there is a high possibility for the native to get married between June 2002 and 2003. The native did not get married. So let's go back and see what could be the reason. First you should see is the 12th house. Remember the 12th house, how it got spoiled. Mars, the 11th house lord, is residing in the 12th house and having a direct an aspect on Saturn, and Saturn's 10th aspect is on the 12th house. So Mars is looking at Saturn and Saturn is looking at Mars. So naturally, wherever Mars is residing, something has to go wrong in that house, both in the 3rd house and the 12th house. And here in the 12th house, what you see is the 12th house lord and 5th house lord, Venus is there. So even though Mercury activated the 12th house, it couldn't make it possible. That's the reason why you have seen that the Mercury could not do anything for the native to get married. Now that the Venus cycle ruler became the cycle ruler at the day after the native turned 24, after her 24th birthday, which is approximately June 2003. So from June 2003 all the way till June 2015, 12 years, Mercury is the cycle ruler. So if Mercury is strong enough, if Mercury had no malefic impacts, or if Mercury did not co-join with a malefic, or any malefic has not with their aspect has not seen the house where Mercury is residing, Venus is residing, then there is a possibility for the Venus to activate the appropriate houses, and so that the native can get married. Unfortunately here Venus, the 5th and 12th house lord, is residing in the 12th house with Mars, and Saturn's 10th aspect is on the 12th house. So having said that, it becomes very difficult for Venus to stand up and say, wait a minute, this is not a time that I have to let the native get married. It's not possible because of the affliction that Venus has got from co-joining with Mars and having a direct having an aspect from Saturn. Now let's go a little bit further and see what's going to happen once you go to the Bhirugucha Sarla Paddhati and look at these important ages, like from the age 23rd till 36. There are some Bhirugu Sarla Paddhati rules. Let's go and see what the rule says and how did the native miss getting married. Here this is the Bhirugu Sarla Paddhati, and what you see here is at the age, the first column is the age, the second column is the description, like what exactly might happen, and the third column is the planet house lordship and the planet natal position from the Lagna and the impacted house from natal position and impacted house from Lagna, and what is the duration, during what period is the possibility for that event to happen. So as I said earlier, what I am trying to do is I just picked the age of 24. That means the day after the 23rd birthday, and before the 24th birthday. According to Bihuruga Chakra Paddhati, remember, Mercury activates the 12th house, and unfortunately Mercury could not do anything according to Bihuruga Chakra Paddhati. Now let's go and see, according to Bihuruga Sarla Paddhati, at the age of 24, is there any planet that can help the native to get married? First we start with Ketu. Ketu is in the 9th house. Yes, Ketu is in the 9th house, and it says its 12th aspect. The 12th aspect is 8th house, so forget it, nothing is going to happen. Next is Saturn. Saturn implements in the 4th house from itself. Saturn is in the 3rd house, so the 4th house from Saturn impacted. The 4th house from its natal position is 1, 2, 3, 4, the 6th house, and so 6th from its natal position is the 6th house from Rashi Lagna, and forget it, nothing is going to happen there. Then comes the word Mercury implements its energies in the 10th house from itself. Mercury is in the 1st house, so it has to implement its energy in the 10th house. That's not something that pertains to marriage or marital life, so nothing is going to happen there. Then the last one is Jupiter. Jupiter implements its energies in the 12th house from itself. Remember, Jupiter is the lord of the 7th house. That's very important here. So look at Jupiter. Jupiter is in the 2nd house, so it says it activates the 12th house from itself. That means the 1st house. 1st house is self. Jupiter is the 7th house lord, and who is there in the 1st house? The 1st and the 4th house lord Mercury is there. So there is a very high possibility for the native to get married between June 2002 and 2003, just because of this Jupiter. Yes, just because of this Jupiter, the native, there is a very high possibility for the native to get married. Unfortunately, it did not happen, so we don't know the reason why. Like I said earlier in all my previous presentations, planetary combinations only provide the opportunity for an event to happen. Will that event happen? It all depends on the native. See here, the native is 23 years old, means she just completed 23rd birthday, and the 24th year is going on. So maybe for some reason, we don't know what the reason is. Either the native was not interested to get married, or the native tried for some other reason, she couldn't get married. So we don't know anything about that point. So now let's go to the 25th year. The day, remember, from the day after 24th year in Bihuruga Chakra Paddhati, Venus is the cycle ruler, and Venus could do nothing. Venus could not help the native to get married. So let's go and see, according to Bihuruga Chakra Sarla Paddhati, what are the other planets that might help the native to get married. First thing we see is at the age of 20, means the day after 24th birthday and before the 25th birthday, Sun implements itself in the house it is residing. Sun is the 3rd house lord, and it is residing in the 1st house. So when it implements the 3rd house lord implementing the 1st house, it has nothing to do with the marriage. So you go to the next one. At the age of 27, Mars implements itself in the 10th house from itself. Mars is in the 12th house. 10th house from itself is the 9th house. Remember, who is the lord of the 9th house? Dharmasthanamo. First of all, 9th is the Dharmasthanamo. So Saturn is the lord of the 9th house, Dharmasthanadipati, and Mars' 4th aspect is on Saturn, and Saturn's 10th aspect is on Mars. So the Dharmasthanam, whatever it is, will not happen. So for the female at that age, if not getting married is something that during the olden days is considered as adharma, because the dharma for a human is to procreate, and if the male or a female is not getting married, that means that they are not using the ability to procreate. That means they are going against dharma. I know a lot of people have an objection for this explanation, but I am going through the basics of the Hindu culture, Indian culture and traditions. not the modern India. This is the old India. Now let's go to the 28th year. So that means the day after 27th birthday and before the 28th birthday, Saturn implements its energy in the 6th house from itself. Saturn is in the 3rd house, the 6th house is the 8th house. Forget it, we don't need it. The 8th house has nothing to do with marriage. Then at the age of 30, Rahu, wherever he sits, gives the result. Rahu is in the 3rd house, so it has nothing to do with the marriage or marital life. So this particular period, whatever Rahu has activated the 3rd house, it doesn't have anything for the native to get married. So next load, go to the last and the important thing is the age of 32. Remember, if you look at Bihurugu Sarla Paddhati, first of all, if you look at the Bihurugu Chakra Paddhati, Venus is the cycle ruler from 24 to 36. That means that is the best period for any native, male or female, to get married according to Bihurugu Chakra Paddhati. Now when you come to Bihurugu Sarla Paddhati, you have there in Bihurugu Chakra Paddhati you have 12 years to take a decision to get married. But when you come to Bihurugu Sarla Paddhati, you have only 2 years, twice the opportunity is very high. And if that doesn't happen, then it's like it becomes a challenge. Here at the age of 24, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 planets, important planets, 3 important planets are activating some of their houses. So if these planets have any way a relationship with the 7th house or the 7th house lord or any of the important houses pertaining to marital life, then the possibility is good for the native to get married at the age of 24. Now that people are rarely getting married at the age of 24, it's worthless to look at these 4 possibilities. So the only thing that you have to do is, if the native does not get married before the age of 30, then the age of 32 is the last opportunity for the native to get married. So here we are with the age of 32. That means the day after 31st birthday and before the 32nd birthday. So what you do is, first and the foremost, what you see is, okay, we'll start with Jupiter. Jupiter will implement its 5th aspect. Now when you look at the Rashi chart, Jupiter is in the 2nd house. So the 5th aspect is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th house. It's worthless. So go to the next one. Jupiter will control or influence the results of the 5th aspect, the 7th house from Jupiter. The 7th house from Jupiter is the 8th house, so it's worthless. Now let's go to the 3rd one. Mercury activates the 5th house from natal position. Oh my gosh. Mercury is the 1st and the 4th house lord. It activates the 5th house. The 5th house lord is Venus. 5th house is house of children or Putrasthanamu. Venus is the 5th and 12th house lord, residing in the 12th house. But remember, Venus got afflicted so badly that it cannot produce the result of the houses it owns. So even when Mercury has activated the 5th house, for some reason the native could not get married. That means Mercury has just activated the house lord is weak, and there might be some other reason which I'm trying to figure it out, which I'm going to tell you right afterwards. I see it here. Okay, so there's another reason why, even though Mercury activated the 5th house during this period, which is June 2010 to June 2011, it did not happen. So let's go to the next one. Is Mars implements its 4th aspect. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mars is in the 12th house, so its 4th aspect is on the 3rd house. Nothing. And then comes Mars. Saturn implements itself where it resides. Saturn is in the 3rd house, so it activates the 3rd house. It has nothing to do with it. Sun, wherever he sits, gives the result. Remember, at the age of 25, Sun implements itself in the where it is residing, and again it does exactly the same thing at the age of 32. Since nothing happened in 25, Sun will not do anything for this native when it comes to the marriage or marital life. So the possibility for the Sun to get married is close to 0. So at the age of 32, there are only 2 possibilities for the native to get married. according to Vedic Paddhati. Number 1, Mercury activated the 5th house. Number 2, Saturn implements itself in the 10th house from itself. 10th house from itself is the 12th house. So Saturn has to activate the 12th house. Now you have to say is, why didn't the need to get married from June 2010 to 2011, that is at the age of 32? This is the last possibility for the Netu to get married, and the Netu was not married. Then let's go and look at the transit analysis. We will see, first we will see the transit analysis, and then we will see the Dasa systems to say why didn't the Netu get married at during this period, 2010 and 2011. To summarize, the Behurug Chakra Paddhati and Behurug Sarla Paddhati, before we start the transit analysis, is here. First of all, according to Behurug Chakra Paddhati, the possibility is very high between June 2002 and June 2003. That is when Mercury activates the 12th house. And then once the Mercury activated the 12th, Venus cycle ruler began, we presumed that because Venus is the 5th and 7th, the 12th house lord, and residing in the 12th house, the possibility is high for the Venus to make the Netu get married. Of course, we know that it did not happen. Now let's go to the Behurug Sarla Paddhati, and there are only two possibilities for Behurug Sarla Paddhati, is between June 2002 and June 2003 and June 2010 to June 2014. Okay. June 2010 to June 2011 is the age of 32 for the Netu. So what we have to do is, the Netu did not get married. No, so let's go and look at the transit analysis. The most important thing what I see here is, first and the foremost, where is transit Saturn? Transit Saturn, if I remember correctly, from November 2014 till from June 2012 to November 2014, that is that 2.5 years, transit Saturn is exalted and is in Libra, which is the 5th house. So when you have an exalted transit Saturn in the 5th house and having a direct aspect on the 11th house owned by Mars, and natal Mars is having an aspect on the natal Saturn, boom, the transit Saturn will not make it happen, because transit Saturn wants to have the lack of desires for the Netu. So between 2012 to 2014, the exalted transit Saturn did not let it happen. Now that we knew that nothing happened from June 2012 to November 2014, let's go 2.5 years backwards. That means from November 2009 till June 2012, that is backwards 2.5 years. So during that period, November 2009 till June 2012, see where is transit Saturn? Transit Saturn is in Virgo, which is which house? The 7th house from natal moon. So when transit Saturn is in Libra, exalted transit Saturn is in Libra, it is in the 8th house from natal moon, which is the Ashtama Shani. Boom. And then when transit Saturn is in Virgo, the 4th house, it is the 7th house from moon, natal moon. So boom, nothing happened. So you go 2.5 years backwards, then transit Saturn is co-joining with natal Saturn and natal Rahu. That means it is both transit Saturn and natal Saturn are going to have a 10th aspect on the 12th house. So the chance is, oh no way. Then you go another 2.5 years backwards, its transit Saturn is in the 2nd house, co-joined with the natal Jupiter. There's a rule, whenever Saturn and Jupiter are co-joined, they create disappointments or hurdles. So you take that rule and go back and see transit Saturn is in the 2nd house, and Jupiter, that's where the Jupiter is residing. So they both create either disappointments or hurdles in the 2nd house. As if that is not enough, we know that transit natal Jupiter is the 7th house lord. So any issues that happens, disappointments or hurdles created in the 2nd house should pertain to the 7th house. 2nd house is Kutumbasthanamo and Dhanasthanamo. So because Kutumbasthanamo is correlated to the 7th house, which is the Kalatrasthanamo, the possibility is very high for transit Saturn and natal Jupiter to make sure that the native does not get married. Now you go 2.5 years backwards further, then transit Saturn is in the 1st house, boom, it is co-joined with the 1st and the 4th house lord, the chances are 0. And you go another 2.5 years backwards, transit Saturn is in the 12th house, co-joined with the 12th house lord Venus and the 11th house lord Mars. So the possibility is close to 0 for this particular native. So when you look at the transit Saturn's positions all the way when it entered what is this called, Taurus, and all the way till it exited Libra, which is in November 2014, that period from November 2014, how many years is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 means approximately 14 years, right? 6 2s are 12, 12 plus 3, 15 years. So 14 to 15 years, approximately to 14 to 15 years, the native did not get an opportunity to get married just because of the power of transit Saturn. So this is exactly the period according to Bihuruga Chakra Paddhati. Venus is the cycle ruler, and this is exactly the period where according to Bihuruga Sarla Paddhati, the native was either in age of 24 or the age of 32. Look, because of these transit Saturn planets and other stuff, transit Saturn, the Bihuruga Chakra Paddhati and Bihuruga Sarla Paddhati could not make a possibility for the native to get married. This is the exact reason why when you go to look at any native and try to see what is the possibility for the native to get married, don't rush to say that okay, we have seen the 7th house, it's done. It's not done. You have to wait to see the 4th, 2nd, 4th, 5th, 11th and 12th houses first, and then figure it out what are the other reasons for that can make this native not get married. Now that we have done for this example 1, we have seen that the D1 chart, Rashi chart, we did the analysis on the Bihuruga Chakra Paddhati, we did the analysis on the Bihuruga Sarla Paddhati, we did the analysis on the transit planets to see is there any possibility for this native to get married before the native turns 32. Nothing. Based on all the previous analysis that we did it, there is no possibility for the native to get married. So let's see, is there a possibility at least the Vimsottari Dasa, the Mahadasa and the Antardasa, is there possibility for the native to get married during the Mahadasa and Antardasa when the native was between 24 to 32. When you look at the Vimsottari Dasa, Venus Mahadasa started in November 2006. Remember, in November 2006 means the native is almost 25 or 26 years old. So we know the Venus. We know Venus couldn't do anything. That means this Venus Mahadasa is no way going to help the native to get married. That means the only possibility that this native, the highest possibility that this native had to get married was when the native turned 23 years, during the native's 24th year. That means the day after 23rd year and the day before 24th year. For some reason the native did not get married at that time, and then after that it became a extremely big challenge for the native to get married. Even the Vimsottari Dasa that you see here does not support the native to get married. Now that we have, we will presume that there is in modern India there is a possibility for females who are under 40 to get over 30, still under 40 to get married. We will assume that there is a possibility. If that possibility exists, let's see can this native get married during Jupiter Antardasa, because that's the one which is the highest possibility we have between January 2017 through September 2019. Good. Now the only thing is, what will happen for this? Can Jupiter is the 7th house lord, which is the Antardasa, and Venus is the 12th and 5th house lord. So you can immediately say that, oh yeah, the Mahadasa and Antardasa planets are lordships are very good, so the possibility is high. But before we do that, let's take 1 second and go back and see. Remember the transit planets, the most important transit planet is Rahu and Saturn. Let's go and see where exactly are these planets. First, when you take the transit Rahu will be in 2nd house and then 1st house. So the transit Rahu is in 2nd house co-joined with the 7th house lord, the chances are 0. It has, because Rahu, wherever he resides, he creates some sort of a hurdles. 2nd house is Dhanasthanamo and Kutumbasthanamo, so he has to create some hurdles pertaining to Dhanasthanamo and Kutumbasthanamo. And 7th house lord Jupiter is residing there, and it's a Jupiter Antardasa. So the possibility, if the native hasn't got married as of now, the possibility for the native to get married when transit Rahu is in Cancer is close to 0. Now let's go and see when transit Rahu is in the 1st house. Transit Rahu in the 1st house or transit Rahu after 1.5 years later in the 12th house, the possibilities are 0. So for the next 2.5 into 3, 7.5 years, 7.5 years, with transit Rahu in the Cancer, transit Rahu in Gemini, transit Rahu in Taurus. When transit Rahu is in all these 3 houses, if the native hasn't got married, the possibility for this native to get married is extremely difficult. So it will be very challenging when you look from the transit Rahu perspective. Now let's go and see the other malefic planet, transit Saturn. Where is transit Saturn? Transit Saturn is in Sagittarius, which is the 7th house, I think somewhere in September or October of 2017, and from there it stays at least for 2 to 2.5 years. That means the Venus Mahadasa and Jupiter Antardasa, during the whole period of Venus Mahadasa and Jupiter Antardasa, transit Rahu is going to stay in the 7th house from Rashi Lagna. Man, that's the tough part of it, because it's owned by Jupiter, so it is staying in the 7th house, having a direct aspect on the 1st and the 4th house lords, which is Mercury. So the chances becomes more challenging for the native to get married, even if the native hasn't got married, even during the Jupiter Antardasa, which started in January 2017 and ends in September 2019. Overall, the final conclusion for this native, the first example, is that under the given situations, it will be extremely challenging, and the possibilities will be very, very close to 0 for this native to get married before September 2019. That's it. I hope have given the best explanation that I can, and I hope you guys have liked it. Thank you very much. Now that I have done all these for this first example, let me go and look at the last opportunity is to look at the Yogini Dasa and see, does Yogini Dasa provide any sort of assistance for this native to get married. On the screen what you see is this, the Yogini Dasa for this native. We are starting from 2004. I think 2004 is when the native is close to 23 or 24 years old. So in 2004 to 2007 you have Jupiter. Remember, I have told you that in transit Saturn, how transit Saturn is going backwards all the way, and probably in 2004 to 2007 transit Saturn might be either in the 11th or 12th houses. So if it is in the, we'll assume that if it is in the 11th house, then the third aspect is on 11th, 12th, first house, right? The direct aspect is on the 5th house, and the 10th aspect is on the 8th house. So transit Saturn is looking at the 1st and the 5th houses, and first house is self, so it has no impact on the 12th and Jupiter. So there might be having the possibility for the native to get married during that between 2007 and 4 and 2007. As I said earlier, it was precisely when when I think it was Mercury activated the 12th house, that was between at the day after 24th year and the day before 24th year. So here, for some reason, we don't know why, the native did not get married in 2004. So let's go to the next cycle, next period. Mahadasa in Yogini Dasa is Mars. Well, we already told you what Mars is. Mars is the 11th house lord residing in the 12th house, and it's having a Saturn is, natal Saturn is looking at natal Mars, and natal Mars is looking at natal Saturn. So forget it, nothing is going to happen here. The next one is Mercury from 2011 till 2016. We already know Mercury is the first house lord, fourth house lord residing in the first house. And the question comes is, why did Mercury do anything? Mercury is in the first and the fourth house lord, but when you look at it from 2011 till 2016, as I said earlier, go back and look at transit Saturn and transit Rahus. Where are they? If you look at it, I think from June 2012 till June 2014, transit Saturn is exalted in Libra, which is Ashtama Shani. And before that, transit Saturn was in 7th house from Moon and 4th house from natal from Rashi Lagna, and that is Mercury owns that 4th house. So even though Mercury was willing to activate it, the house that it owns, the 4th house Sukhasthanamu, is owned, is transit Saturn is residing there. So it is transit Saturn who decides when it comes to the 4th house. And the next one is when transit Saturn moved to, while the Mercury Mahadasa is running, transit Saturn moved to Libra, it is the Ashtama Shani. So when it is Ashtama Shani, a lot of things are possible, not possible to happen. And because even though Mercury is the ruler, it couldn't do anything because the power of Ashtama Shani. So the next one comes is Saturn from 2016 to 2022. Oh my gosh, from 2016 to 2022 means Saturn somewhere in 2017, transit Saturn will enter the 7th house. So as I said earlier, the chances are very, very close to zero when transit Saturn is in Sagittarius, that is from September 2017 till November 2019. I don't think there will be any hope for this native to get married when transit Saturn is in Sagittarius. And here, according to Yogini Dasa, it is the Saturn Mahadasa. So for sure, Saturn residing in the 7th house from Rashi Lagna will control the 7th house, just like natal Saturn is controlling the 3rd house. And the transit Saturn residing in the 7th house has direct aspect on the 1st and the 4th house lord. Already 4th house has been spoiled by natal Saturn. So the chances are close to zero for this native, the first example, for this native to get married even between 2017 October till December 2019. I have seen some of the people responding saying there's a possibility for the native to get married between in 2018 or 2019, something like that. But in my opinion, it is extremely challenging, and I would be emphasizing that the possibility is close to zero. Okay, now let's go and start analyzing the second example. The native was born on 27th August 1979. Okay, now that we have seen the chart is clearly visible, where's the Lagna? The Lagna is Capricorn, so the Lagnadipati is Saturn. The first and the second house lord is Saturn. Keep that in mind. This is very important to start with. When the first and the second house lord is Saturn, that means you got to wait, pause, don't rush for any conclusion. And now let's go and start looking at the second house. The first house is empty. The second house is, who is there in the second house? Ketu is in the second house. That means Rahu is having a direct aspect on the second house. So when Rahu is in the second house, that means when the Rahu is aspecting the second house, means Rahu is in the 8th house. 8th house. Okay, so let's go and look at what's there in the 8th house. That means, is there any other planet that is aspecting the second house apart from Rahu? When you look at it, the 8th house is, you have 3 major planets in the 8th house along with Rahu. So Venus, Sun and Saturn, all the 3 are having a direct aspect on the second house. So you can clearly say that second house, Dhanasthanamo or Kutumbasthanamo, will be, it won't be stable. That's at this point I will say that the word stable. The reason why I said one of these two will not be stable is because first and second house lord Saturn is directly looking at the second house, so he will make sure that he rules the first and the second house, that those are his own houses, and now he is looking at the Saturn, the second house. So it has to, even if any benefic looks at the Saturn, nothing is going to happen because Saturn owns it and it is looking at its own house. So what we need to do is, what are the other planets apart from the second house, what is other things happening there? So for that, what I do usually is go back and look at the Mars. What happens is, Mars direct aspect is on the 12th house and the 8th aspect is on the first house. So fine, Mars is having an aspect on the first house. That's fine with us. Now that we completed the second house, let's see the third, 4th house. Oh, Mars is the lord of the 4th house. 4th house is Sukhasthanamo and Mars is owning that. And guess what? It is in the 4th, 5th and 6th house, and Mars is having the 8th aspect on the first house. So the 4th house lord, malefic or semi-malefic lord Mars, is looking at the first house. Just keep in mind, the 4th house lord is looking at the first house. Just keep that in mind. Now comes is, when you look at Mars being the 4th house lord, and remember these are all the female natives are all females, so you better have a quick look at, okay, this Mars, where is it, this Mars, when it comes to from Chandra Lagna. So when you look from Mars, Moon, Mars is the 7th house lord, is the lord of the 7th house. So that itself tells you that there is a high possibility for delay in marriage, and there are 2 reasons for this. Number 1, because Moon is looking at the 7th house, the native might not be mentally willing to get married. I don't know anything about that, about her, so this is the possibility I'm just telling. The second thing is, Mars being the 4th house lord, looking at the first house, the native might not, personally, the native might not be having a good opinion when it comes to home life environment. Either the native had seen some sort of a violent or chaotic home life environment before marriage, which made her to think that, no, I'm not going to get married. If I get married, I might get this type of chaotic home life environment. We don't know anything about the native's past life, so whatever I'm trying to tell here is all the assumptions based on the planetary positions. So let's go and look at the next one is 2, 3, 4, the 5th house. The 5th house lord is Venus And where is Venus? Venus is in 6th, 7th, 8th house. Okay, that's not a right house to be. But Venus is co-joined with the 8th house Lord Sun, and Venus is co-joined with the 1st and the 2nd house Lord Saturn, and Venus is co-joined with Rahu. Gosh, here the 8th house is very, very complicated, but I am not going to talk about that since I am discussing about the possibility for the NATO to get married. The next, after the 5th house, what we do is go and look at the 7th house. The 7th house Lord is Moon. Moon is in 8th, 9th, 10th house Libra, owned by Venus. Okay, and in 7th house you have Jupiter and Mercury. That's very good thing. Jupiter is the Lord of the 12th house, pleasures of bed. That's a very good thing. And Mercury is the Lord of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Dharmasthanamo. That's another good thing. So the native is not mentally prepared to get married when you look from Moon, but her destiny is to get married. So this tells you that even though the native is mentally not willing to get married, the destiny for the native is to get married. But we know that the native is not married. So let's go back and say, what's the problem? When you look at Saturn, the 2nd house Lord, Saturn's 3rd aspect is on the 10th house, where the 7th house Lord Moon is residing. This is a female chart, so Moon is Matrukaraka, and Moon is the 7th house Lord, and Saturn is looking at Moon. That is the reason the mind, Saturn is spoiling the mental stability of this NATO, Moon, and Moon is directly looking at the 7th house is Mars. See, I'm sure you're slowly trying to get is that this 4th house, which is the 4th house from Rashi Lagna. So what's happening here is that because the native is not mentally prepared to get married, and the possibility for this, the reason being that there might be some sort of a chaos or some sort of a disturbances in her previous home life environment, which has resulted the native to not get prepared mentally to get married. So basically saying, when I looked at this chart, astrologically saying the native has the destiny to get married, mentally saying the native has some challenges to get married. So these type of charts, when you look at it, you cannot 100% rely on the chart and give a prediction. You need to have a thorough discussion with the native. You need to have an idea about the native's past life, the native's family situation, and a lot of other things. So it's not, these type of charts are not advisable for blind reading. That's the reason why I did not emphasize much on this chart. But still, I'm going to see the Bihuruga Chakra Paddhati and Sarala Paddhati for this native too. Just for the people who are eager to learn those two techniques, they can see this video and then have an idea about how I am doing it. Let's now start analyzing, at least reviewing the Bihuruga Chakra Paddhati for the second example. The native was born on August 27th, 1979. If you look at it, like the first example, the native was born in 1979 too, this example also, the native was born in 1979. So when you look at it, the first possibility is between August 2002 and August 2003, when Mercury activates the 12th house. So let's go and see where is the first of all, from Rashi Lagna, the 12th house is, the Lord is Jupiter. 12th house Lord is Jupiter, of course, and 12th house is empty, but Jupiter is in the 7th house having a direct aspect on the 1st house. So Jupiter there is willing for the native to get married, is helping the native to get married. And then the 12th house, Jupiter, Mercury is co-joined with Jupiter, so the 12th house from its natal position is the 6th house. So Jupiter is just active, Mercury is just activating the 6th house, and the 12th houses, and fortunately the 12th house lord is co-joined with Jupiter, so there is a high possibility for this native to get married between August 2002 and August 2003. But we know that the native did not get married, and we have no idea why the native did not get married at that young age. Let's not worry about that part of it, the reasons. But we are sure, we know that the native did not get married. The next comes is the Venus is the cycle ruler. So when you look at the Bihurug Chakra Paddhati, for the first thing you do is you look at the cycle ruler and go back to the Rashi chart and see how strong is the cycle ruler. So when you look at Venus, oh my God, did you see the Venus? Venus is in the 8th house, and Venus is co-joined with her Sun, the 8th house lord, Saturn, the 1st and 2nd house lord, and Rahu. Rahu is a malefic, Saturn is a malefic, and Venus has co-joined with 2 malefics. As if that is not enough, the house owned is Sun, and Ravi, Sun is in the house, and Saturn and Sun are extremely bitter enemies. So in residing in an enemy's house co-joined with an enemy indicates that how much the house got spoiled, which is the 8th house. When the 8th house got that much spoiled, naturally residing the spoiled house, Venus also will have the impact of the spoilage. So Venus in no way is going to help this native. According to Bihuru Chakra Paddhati, being the cycle ruler, Venus is no way going to help the native to get married. So until the native turns 36 years old, which is August 2015, in my opinion, the possibility for this native to get married is close to 0. Having said for the second example about the Bihuru Chakra Paddhati, and I said that the possibility is close to 0 for this native to get married before 2015 August. Now let's go and see the Vimshottari Dasa. Who is the cycle Mahadasa? The Mahadasa is Jupiter starting in 2000 January, so it will last for 16 years. So in the 16 years, Jupiter being the 7th house lord, 12th house lord, residing in the 7th house and co-joined with the 7th, 8th, 9th house lord Venus, everybody might say that yes, that the possibility is very high for this native to get married during the Jupiter Mahadasa. That's true, the possibility is very high. But what we have to do is, since we knew that the native hasn't got married, this tells you that even though Jupiter is strong enough and even though Jupiter is willing to provide an opportunity for the native to get married, something went wrong, and because of that the native hasn't got married. So let's try to see the other dasa and the transit planets to see if there is if we can figure it out what that something could be. When you look at the Yogini Dasa for this native, the second example, what you see is that the Rahu in Yogini Dasa, according to Yogini Dasa, Rahu Mahadasa started in 2006 and went all the way till 2014. So you know Rahu is in the 8th house, so and Rahu has co-joined with Mars and Venus. So the possibility for Rahu to do something so that the native can get married is close to 0 because of its positioning where it is been positioned. Thus from 2006 till 2011, one thing is sure, the Yogini, according to Yogini Dasa, Rahu is not at all cooperating the native to get married. So then you go back further down, like what's the next Mahadasa is Moon, which is from 2014 December till 2015 December, that is only for 1 year. Yes, that 1 year something should have happened for the native to get married, but it did not happen. And let me tell right here itself why that could not happen. When you look at the transit Saturn, remember transit Saturn is in Libra from June 2012 till November 2014, Libra is the place where it gets exalted, and for some period you have transit Rahu also in Libra, and for this natal moon is residing in Libra. That means the second part of the Sade Shani is going on for this natal. Okay, and the natal, so what happened is that the transit Saturn, when it entered Virgo in 2009, somewhere in December 2009, from there you add 7.5 years, which is the Sade Shani, and Saturn being the first and the second house lord. I think that because of this Sade Shani and natal Saturn owning the first and second houses, and because natal moon is looking at the fourth house from Rashi Lagna, which is the Sukhasthanamu, and now the transit Saturn and transit Rahu are also looking at the fourth house from Rashi Lagna, which is the Sukhasthanamu. I think during the Sade Shani period, the native had least ability to get married. Either she was mentally not willing to get married, sometimes partially, or sometimes she might have got an opportunity, and for some peculiar reason she missed that opportunity, which we don't know, and she couldn't get married. So overall, for this second example, what I would like to conclude is that either of the way, from any direction you see, this is the transit Saturn had played such a vital role for this native to get when it comes to the marriage, because it is in the 8th house and resided in the 8th house, and it owns the first and the second house. And when you look at from the 8th house, which house does it look at it? 1, 2, 3. The third aspect is on moon, the 7th house lord. 4, 5, 6, 7. The 7th aspect is on its own house, the second house, and the 10th aspect is on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th house. Oh gosh, Putrasthanam. So this is the reason when you see transit Rahu, transit Saturn having an impact on, when it touches some of the important natal planets, the possibility is very high for all of these natal planets to get afflicted, and what they are supposed to do will be very difficult for them to do it. So when you try to predict anything, don't just look at the planetary positions, look at the dasa systems and the transit planets during that period. Okay, let me start the third example. The date of birth for this female native is September 1981. This is the female native. So let me start with the D1 chart. When you look at the D1 chart, the Lagnadipati is Venus, and Venus is the lord of the first and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, first and sixth houses. So the 7th house lord is Mars. 7th and 12th house lord is Mars. Keep this in mind. This is the female chart and the 7th and 12th house lord is Mars. That's the first thing you have to keep in mind. Second, where is the 7th and 12th house lord residing? If you look at it, 7th and 12th house lord Mars is co-joined with Rahu. Oh my gosh. And if you ignore, personally I don't consider the inclinations for each planet, but if you ignore it, you can clearly see that this native has Kala Sarpa Yoga. So all the planets are within Rahu and Ketu axis. Rahu is co-joined with the 7th and 12th house lord. The native is having Kala Sarpa Yoga. So this itself is enough for you to start with a benefit of doubt that there is a possibility for this native something to happen pertaining to her, the 7th house and 12th house. So remember, I told you wherever Rahu resides, he does some hiccups, creates hiccups in the house that he sees, and the house that he aspects and the planet it co-joined with. Very soon I am going to give a presentation with this topic, the one that I said about Rahu just now. Now you go and see who is the second house lord. The second and fifth house lord is Mercury. Good. Mercury is residing in the 6th house, co-joined with the 6th and the 1st house lord Venus, and co-joined with the 3rd house lord Moon. So Moon is now, the mind is very important here. If you look at it, from Moon, the 7th house lord is again Mars. Remember, from Rashi Lagna, the 7th and 12th house lord is Mars. From Moon, the 7th house lord is Mars. That's the very, very difficult thing that you have to see. Also, from Moon, the 12th house, who is there in the 12th house? Saturn, Sun and Jupiter. So the most 3 important planets. Jupiter is the 11th house lord, which is the house of desires, okay, and Saturn is the house of 12, 11, 10, 9 and 8, 12, 10 and 9, 9th and 10th houses lord, and the Sun is the lord of the 4th house. First and the foremost, when you see this combination, from Moon in the 12th house you have Saturn, that itself tells you that there is something wrong from Moon when it comes to the pleasures of bed. That means from Moon, the native's mind has some sort of an issue when it comes to the pleasures of bed. Then comes, as I said earlier, because this is a female native, what you have to do is you have to look at the position of Mars from both Moon and Venus. So from Moon, since Venus and Moon are both in the same position, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you look at the position of Mars, Mars is in the 10th house. Okay, that's fine. So now the only thing you have to see is why didn't the native get married? So you go and see, first of all, the 4th house lord Ravi, Sun, is in the 5th house, co-joined with Saturn. We know that wherever Saturn resides, it controls that house. So the 5th house is controlled by Saturn. Good. And Saturn and Sun are bitter enemies. So the 4th house lord is residing in the 5th house with and the house is controlled by its enemy Saturn. So you can see that there will be some sort of a disturbance when it comes to 4th and 5th houses. Good. We knew that. Next, the last thing you have to see is Saturn and Jupiter, they both are co-joined. So for sure they are going to spoil Aries. Aries is the 12th house from Rashi Lagna and 7th house from Chandra Lagna. See, this itself is enough to say that the possibility for this native to get married is 0, close to 0 or 0. There's nothing this native can do to get married, because from Moon, Mars is the house that Jupiter and Saturn spoils. From Moon, it is in the 7th house, and then from Rashi Lagna, it is the 12th house. Also from Moon, Saturn is in the 12th house. So you end up with the 7th and the 12th houses being such a crucial houses, ending up with so much of malefic stuff that the possibility for this native to get married is close to 0. And if you look at 1981, so when in 1981 means starting June 2009 till all the way till November 2014, that's 7.5 years. This native is going through Shade Shani. That is another reason why, even though when the natal Saturn is creating so much of mess, transit Saturn is just created the Sadeshani for the native, indicating that the chances being further declined. So having said that, when I look, because I look that this is no way the possibility for this native to get married is close to zero, I should say it is extremely zero, what I did is there is no reason to go forward and look at the BCP and BSP and other DASA systems. So for this native, I'm not going to move forward and do analysis on other methodologies, because it's no way you can the Rashi's chart is no way supporting the native to get married. Let me start analyzing the fourth female chart. The date of birth for this native is 1983, March 1983. And if you look at the Lagna, the first house is, the Lagna is Taurus, Gemini Taurus, yes. And that means Mercury is the Lagnadipati. And Mercury is in the 9th house. And who owns that 9th house? 9th house is owned by Saturn. And in the first house, what you see is Rahu. Rahu is in the first house, indicating that it is having a direct aspect on the 7th house, and the 7th house lord is Jupiter. So remember, I think I had said earlier in the previous three examples, I think I remember I said that wherever Rahu is residing, three things are sure to happen. Number one, in the house that Rahu is residing and the house that it has a direct aspect, though in those two houses there will be some sort of a disturbances, the bhava of those houses. That's the first and second. The third one is, if Rahu is co-joined with anyone in that house, the house owned by that co-joined planet will have little bit of disturbances. Here Rahu is alone. So since Rahu is in the first house and looking at the 7th house, there will be some sort of a disturbance for this particular native pertaining to Tanusthanamu itself or Kalatrasthanamu, the 7th house, which is marriage, house of marriage. So the very first thing that I noticed is this one. Now let's go to the second one. The second, I'm just trying to tell you what are the highlights of this chart before I go deep. So in the second one, the 7th house lord is Jupiter, and Jupiter is residing in the 6th house. There is a rule, I read it in Gayatri Devi's in Astrological magazine, that if the 6th house lord is in the 7th house or vice versa, there are two possibilities for that native to happen. Either the native will remain unmarried, or if the native got married in early age, then either the native will become a widow or get divorced. Remember, 6th house deals with enemies. So if the 7th house lord is in the 6th house, then for that particular native, the spouse is an enemy. If the 6th house lord is in the 7th house, for that particular native, the spouse is an enemy. So when you have the spouse, when the planetary position indicates that the spouse as an enemy, so either you don't get married, that's the positive sign of this combination. The negative sign is you get married, the native gets married, and then either get divorced or become a widow. Here in this case, the native is unmarried, at least to the possible, like that as per July or August of 2017. I'm hoping for that. Now let's go and start looking at the important houses pertaining to marriage. As I said earlier, 7th house lord is Jupiter, who is in the 6th house. So I told you the rule, so the chance is not that much. Next one is the 2nd house. 2nd house lord is, wait a minute, before I go to 2nd house, let me correct it here. Because the native is a female, what I would prefer to do before going further is that I look at the position of natal Mars from natal moon and natal Venus. In this chart, from moon, Mars is in the 1st house, that's the Kuja dosha, resulting in because Mars is in the first house from Moon, it is a Kujadosha that's resulting in lack of a desire for the native to get married. I should say that way. Next, from Venus, Mars is in the 12th house, which is also a Kujadosha, indicating that the native will have some sort of a disturbances when it pertained to the 12th house from Venus, which is pleasures of bed. So, there are two Kujadoshas for this female native, and there is one rule that tells you that Jupiter, the 6th house, 7th house lord is in Jupiter, and there's another one that says that Rahu is in the first house. So, just by looking at the D1 chart, there are three combinations that tell you that the possibility for this native to get married is minimal. I'm not saying zero, is minimal. Now we'll go and start looking at the other houses, important houses for marital life from Rashi Lagna. We'll start from Rashi Lagna. The second house lord is Moon. Moon is in the 10th house, co-joined with the 11th and 6th house lord Mars. See, 6th house lord is enemies and Rogasthanadipati. 11th house lord is house of desires of or Kamasthanamo, and Mars is in a sort of a natural malefic, and Moon is the 4th house lord. The 2nd house lord is co-joined with the 11th house lord. Naturally, the 2nd house there will be some sort of a disturbances in the 2nd house, which is Kutumbasthanamo or Dhanasthanamo. So, because the native is unmarried, because we knew that the native is unmarried, so the issue is in Kutumbasthanamo. Then comes the 4th house. The 4th house lord is Mercury. Mercury is in is in the 9th house. That's fine, there is no issues with the Mercury. The next house is the 5th house. The 5th house lord is Venus. Oh my gosh, Venus is in the 11th house, and from 11th house it is having a direct aspect on its own. Venus is the 5th and the 12th house lord Venus. The 5th and the 12th house lord Venus is in the 11th house. 5th house is Putrasthanamo or house of children. 12th house is pleasures of bed, and 11th house is Kamasthanamo. So look at it. Look at the position of Venus. At this point, Venus is very, very strong to make the native to get married, have children, and fulfill the pleasures of bed. Based from pleasures of bed, fulfill her desires. Up to this point, everything is fine. Unfortunately, Saturn, the exalted Saturn, is residing in the 5th house and having a direct aspect on the 11th house, where 5th and 12th house lord Venus is residing. Oh shoot. That is the another important reason why this native could not get married, even though the native has so many other positive things. I already told you 3 negatives reasons for the possibility for the native not to get married. This is the 4th one. The 4th one is very important. Exalted Saturn residing in the 5th house will control the 5th house. He is looking directly in the 11th house, where 11th house, that means there will be a possibility for lack of desires, and 5th and 12th house lord Venus is residing in the 11th house, so Venus got completely spoiled. This is the reason when you look at the Bihurgu Chakra Paddhati, when Venus is the cycle ruler, Venus could not help the native to get married. This is the primary reason. So, I don't need to go to Bihurgu Chakra Paddhati for this native and explain why the native could not get married when Venus was the cycle ruler. Now let's go up. Now I have done the 6th house, the 7th house is over. Another thing I want to tell you here is Saturn's 3rd aspect residing in the 5th house. Saturn does 2 things. Residing in the 5th house, it spoils the 6th house where the 7th house lord is residing. So the 7th house lord is residing in a spoiled house, so the 7th house lord became worthless. Then Saturn's 3rd aspect is on the 7th house, so it is residing in the 5th house, controlling the 5th house, spoiled the 6th house where the 7th house lord is residing. The 3rd aspect is on the 7th house. The 7th aspect, the direct aspect, is on the 11th house, where the 5th and 12th house Lord Venus is residing. And the last important thing is the 10th aspect is on the 2nd house. Oh gosh, 2nd house is Kutumbasthanam. Because Saturn is exalted here, all the houses that it looks at it, and the house where it resides, and the house that is spoils, which is next to its residence, all the houses and their characteristics got completely spoiled. So for this native, blindly, just by looking at the D1 chart, what you can say is that 2nd house, 5th house, 6th house, 7th house, 11th house and 12th house. See, all these houses are very, very important when it comes to marital life. All are gone. As if this is not enough, from moon, the native is having two Kucha doshas. One is from moon and one is from Venus. And Rahu is residing in the 1st house. So, overall, to the extent possible, up to the best of my knowledge, the possibility for this native to get married is close zero. And accidentally, for any reason, maybe because I haven't seen the transit planets, but I'll do the transit analysis later in the next chart. So even if the native gets married at a younger age, the native would get divorced, or the native will be a widow. So as far as the information that I received, this native is not married. That might be the reason. These are all the reasons that I could tell as of now.